Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Monday, the 4th of October. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined, as ever, by Joshua Barrie and Jonny McFarlane as we look back on Rangers' 2-1 victory over Hibs at Ibrox yesterday. A huge game. It certainly felt like that with the manager's reaction. Joshua, you were there for us. What was your main takeaways from the game?
Well, first for the first half, the main takeaways were up until the red card that this is boring, and it was. I thought Hibs started the game much better. They pressed really intelligently to limit Rangers. They pressed really high. I thought Rangers missed Ryan Kent's pace and behind. But after the red card, and although you're playing against 10 men, as Gerrard said after, that can sometimes be more difficult because of the nature of where those 10 men go, which is behind the ball. I thought Rangers moved it really quickly, and I thought probably for how long, 50 of those 60 minutes, they were really good. So it was impressive. And my main takeaway, Derek, to be honest, for a lot of that game, the narrative is still waiting for this big performance, But I think Gerrard's comments after were interesting when he's saying this season is different, and explaining his celebrations, we're going to need one another. And I think very much, they're a point worse off than they were last season. And this team, my takeaway was this team have lacked, basically in the past, being brutal and finding ways to win and grinding games out, like the game against Dundee. And maybe it is, my thinking now is maybe it is just another part of this team's evolution, where Gerrard said as well yesterday, Arfield was meant to play, but picked up an illness. And as disruption has kind of ensued over the last couple of months, Rangers still find themselves top of the table and in a semi-final. So in the second half as well, in terms of the way and the pace they moved the ball, Gerrard said they looked a lot more like he would want to, and I thought it was much improved as well. So I think in general it was another big win to sign off before, sadly, another international break.
Yeah, before we come to you, Jonny, of course, we've got loads of you, thousands of you tuning into our YouTube channel. So just a reminder to hit subscribe and get alerts the moment we go live or have a new video set up. So go and do that just now. Jonny, let's talk about the big incident in the first half. Of course, Kevin Nisbet's header, then followed by the most reckless red card you'll ever see. It was an absolute stonewaller. Ryan Porteous going flying into Joe Aribo. He can have no complaints about being dismissed, can he?
No, absolutely not. One of the first things that I did is, upon seeing the challenge, was to go and say on Twitter that I thought it was a ridiculous challenge and that the referee should be given kudos for giving the red card. I quickly deleted it, however, because I was inundated with abuse from various parties, and a video emerged that made it look like it wasn't a red card. And I thought, oh Christ, I've called this completely wrong. There's a sort of side angle video, which you'll have seen, which is the one that's going around, but it's been very, very slowed down. It's a strange tackle because you sort of have a different opinion on it over depending on which angle you see it from. But there's two angles that show you exactly what the tackle is. And that's the one that's sort of directly behind it, as if you're from Alan McGregor's goal. And you see the sheer pace that he comes in to challenge Joe Aribo at. It's wild, it's out of control. He's off the ground. Although people say, well, he won the ball with his sort of hamstring. He took the ball not with his foot, but with another part of his leg. And if he makes contact, as Steven Gerrard says, it is an absolute leg breaker, potential career ender. So having watched it again and again and again and again, all the different angles, for me, it's a stonewall red card. And anyone who's arguing that it's not a stonewall red card needs to get a grip of what the Scottish football rules are. Well, the rules and the laws of the game, not nothing to do with Scottish football. The laws, the IFAB laws of the game, they need to get a grip of those, because it's quite clearly serious foul play, and it's quite clearly a red card under the serious foul play criteria, which specifically mentions that if you lunge from the front or for the side and endanger your opponent, then it's a red card. So I don't really understand what the debate is here, and that you've got pundits giving it, well, there was no contact. Well, it doesn't matter if there's contact or not. It's about endangerment. If you aim a roundhouse kick at somebody's face, they're lucky enough to dodge out the way. Is it not a red card because there's no contact? It doesn't. these kind of points just don't hold up to any kind of scrutiny. It's ridiculous. So listen, let's just put this to bed because it's already getting a bit boring. It was a red card. There's no debate. That's it. Next, move on. Well, you don't have to, but I'm talking about the general debate.
I'm going to go full Neil Lennon here and go air quotes when you say pundits. Michael Stewart and Tam McManus are the ones that have sort of flagged up that he shouldn't have been sent off because he never made contact. Like you say, Jonny, it's the laws of the game. You think to yourself, if you're commenting on Scottish football, you should really be clued up with what's allowed and what's not allowed. Steven Gerrard didn't miss when speaking about it afterwards. He says it's a wild tackle. It's a leg-breaking tackle if he catches him. The kid only has to play the ball. I don't know why there is any reason that he wants to go in with that intent. And that's the second time that he's done it against us because he done it against Lassana Coulibaly not so long ago. So the kid is obviously not learning and he has let his manager and his teammates down today. That is obviously Jack's business. He also goes on to say there's no defending a tackle like that because of the speed of it, the height of it, and the force doesn't belong on a football pitch. He says he's had to learn himself over as a player from those types of moments of madness, he calls it. So hopefully the kid learns. But he clearly doesn't learn, Joshua, because like Gerrard says, he's got previous for this. And it's just, how does he improve his game? Because the red mist just sort of descends when he plays against Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, in the ground, you kind of seen the pace of it, and it didn't look good. I think originally I thought, is it a sending off for being the last man because of where Joe Aribo was on the pitch, and obviously sitting in the main stand, the tackle was heading away from us, but yeah, it wasn't great upon viewing it back. And I agree with Jonny. I think it's just it's a lunge, and it's not really a debate. It's a dangerous tackle. I think Ryan Porteous is a really good player in many respects. I think he's a good passer of the ball, and broke into the Hibs team at a young age. But there has been obviously a few tackles. I think the Lassana Coulibaly one was probably even worse if that's possible. So yeah, just also good that Joe Aribo managed to get out the way of it. But it changed the game as well in Rangers' favour, and they kind of it meant Scott Allen had to go off. Hibs couldn't press as they had been before, and so it really worked against Porteous in kind of all regards in the end.
Yeah, and just finally touching on it, Jonny, you mentioned there, credit must go to Nick Walsh because we've seen these sort of tackles go unpunished in Scottish football before, so it's good to see he was brave. He knew straight away it was a terrible challenge, and fair credit for him for pulling out the red.
Yeah, absolutely. I've belted at Scottish refs for the last 5 or 6 years about the need to allow creative players to flourish. And if Scottish football continues to allow this kind of wild tackling to continue, it's simply going to allow physicality to overcome quality. And that is not what we need in this league. We need to encourage creative players, the likes of Joe Aribo, the likes of Yanis Hadji, over the Clyde, the likes of David Turnbull and Tom Rogic. You can't have good quality attacking creative players scythed down and reduced by essentially what is deliberate thuggery to kind of even the playing fields. That's a perfectly legitimate tactic, by the way, and one that Rangers and Celtic will use when they're going up against bigger teams in Europe. They'll use physicality. That's legitimate. But what's not legitimate is referees to allow that to go unchecked. There is a punishment for that. There is a cause and effect that will affect teams when they choose to take that strategy on. But if the referee doesn't choose to make sure that is legitimate by the rules, and that they will suffer the consequences of their actions, then it's allowing unchecked physicality to overcome skill, and we just can't have that.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, Joshua, when they went down to 10 men, I thought Rangers might struggle here based on previous encounters with teams reduced to 10. But to be fair, second half they came out, they looked at a different side. They just laid siege on the Hibs goal, and they got their goals. Kemar Roof came on. Good substitution from Steven Gerrard, of course, and he popped up with a crucial goal. And Nathan Patterson, who was preferred to James Tavernier at right back, that was a real eye opener, that one, but he provided the assist as well. So a real different second half show. What did you make of Nathan Patterson overall?
Well, Gerrard said after the game, didn't he, that I think he said something along the lines of Nathan can look at that performance and see so much to improve on, which is a positive, because I thought there was lots of good bits to Patterson's game. I thought he was up against a fullback in Deutsch, is one of the only players who's going to be able to match him physically and kind of combat his runs in field. But his ball for that roof goal was excellent. And Rangers, they had that kind of 10-minute spell towards, or 5-minute spell towards the end of the first half, but they just moved a lot quicker. And I think, against Motherwell, when they were chasing the goal a couple of weeks ago, there wasn't quite that, just that pace in attack. I thought Hadji also made a big difference. What Hadji does so well for me is, especially when you're playing against 10 men, he always takes markers away, never stands still. So in whatever area he is in, and there was one moment where Patterson really should have released him to the right of the box, and Gerrard was screaming at him for not doing so. But Hadji just always makes the opposition team move. And I thought the two goals were excellent because, I was thinking after the game, does that space open up against 11 men? And I think kind of it does if you look for both goals. Patterson's crossing from kind of infield position, and Barisic gets one back on Cadden, who did a number on him earlier in the game for obviously Nisbet's goal. The thing that impressed me most, we know Roof how clever he is peeling off the back, but for Morelos, and I put a tweet out of a goal breakdown this morning on it, the way that Morelos does this little hop, almost as if it's like a penalty and you're trying to commit the goalkeeper to going one way, and he does that with Hanlon. He sells him perfectly, buys just a yard in behind and manages to score. And it was, there yesterday, Morelos, again, he's continually going into this deep line forward who links play. He was a great out ball for Rangers in that first half when they were struggling to play through Hibs, but that was a real throwback to kind of the Morelos of old that arrived, and his only aim was goals, and the way he managed to create that situation and capitalise on it was excellent. So it was great to see kind of, I know there's been a lot of discussion about his changing role. It was great to see him kind of retain that poacher-esque finish, and I thought the movement for it was just excellent for him to buy the yard and take advantage of it too.
Yeah, Jonny, we've been banging on the door for Nathan Patterson to get more game time. I've got to say it, no one had him in our starting lineups for this game against Hibs, and for the captain to start on the bench. It was interesting to see Steven Gerrard mention it afterwards. He says it was a difficult decision. It would have surprised a lot of people. He appreciates that, but he says he's capable of playing 60 to 65 games a season. He says that he's a machine and very robust, but he did say he did have an injury at the tail end of last season, and they have to be careful how they use Tavernier. And I've got to say, I quite enjoyed seeing Nathan Patterson in that starting lineup. I think first half maybe a little bit rusty, but he certainly came on to a game, and he certainly didn't do himself any harm.
No, I think what I like about Nathan Patterson is not only is he strong. I mean, Tavernier is really strong, but not only is Patterson strong, he's got a change of pace I'm not sure Tavernier has.
Yeah.
There was a moment when he was going towards the byline and he knocked it on past the defender. I think it was Josh Doig. And you thought to yourself, well, he's knocked that too far. But he's so quick that he got there and was able to cut it across. Now, his cutback wasn't the best, and it was actually more like a shot, and the keeper saved it down to his left, his near post. But it was just the sheer electric pace over about 3 or 4 yards that made me think, geez, Patterson is electric. And he played really well, got his assist, and I think Steven Gerrard will be really, really happy with how he came onto a game in the second half. It's fascinating, and those comments, I saw them last night from Steven Gerrard in his post-match press conference. Sounds like we're going to see what we've been calling for, which is a move from Tavernier to go from sort of 55, 60 games a season down to maybe 40. And as Steven Gerrard says, I think that'll benefit his career, because you can't go on playing the volume of games. I mean, we've seen that with a number of players over the years that are Iron Men for a section of their career, but it's never good overall. And you always end up paying the price. You know, we've seen players, just to maybe go off piste a little bit, but you look at someone like Wayne Rooney, who started at 16, you see kind of like their careers are sort of petering out by the time they're 28, 29, because, you've got a kind of finite length of time where you can play, unless you're a complete, monster like a Cristiano Ronaldo. who's just very, very, very unusual. But most players kind of have an amount of punishment they can put their body through before you have to pay the piper. So it's definitely a smart strategy. I think it's one we've been advocating. We talked about it with Stephen Davis as well. And I think it's good to see. And Stephen Gerrard said after the game that he trusts Patterson and Tavernier equally in that right flank. And you can see why, because they both deliver.
Yeah, Joshua, Jonny mentioned Stephen Davis. John Lundstram preferred in midfield again, and another man of the match display from him. How good was he yesterday?
I thought, yeah, good. It wasn't. The thing is, I think obviously Lundstram's being judged within the context of everyone thinking he was hopeless when he wasn't for the first month. But he was really good. You can still sense there's that little bit of unease about him from the support at points. I think because of maybe the scar tissue from the Alishkirk game. But in general, he was really good. He's a real physical presence, protected his defence. If you look at the pass map this morning, he was really, as you'd imagine, at the centre of anything as that number 6 role. But he also made a couple of really good challenges early on either flank. Did what that number 6 role needs to do. And the thing is, as Gerrard said, Stephen Davis played obviously in Prague on Thursday, and with 10 men for 30 minutes of that as well. It's not sustainable for him to then go and play another high intensity game on the Sunday when he's 36 and then going away to play internationals. So another good outing for John Lundstram. I thought he was deserving of his man of the match. Does a lot of things quietly very well, and it's great to see that signing is paying dividends for Gerrard.
Yeah, Jonny, it felt like a big game yesterday, a big 3 points, given how the season has gone so far. And we've seen that with Stephen Gerrard's emotions at full time. He certainly enjoyed that one, didn't he? Yeah,
it was remarkable to see Stephen Gerrard, who's over the last season certainly really emotionally isolated himself after these games, and not got himself into a situation where he was either under or over celebrating anything. So it was very unusual, because it's clear that he controls himself much more than he did in his first season, and he's reflected on his management career as it's gone on and learned and developed. So I think he was very specifically making a point, actually. I don't think this was Stephen Gerrard losing control. I think quite the opposite. I think it was Gerrard in control, making a point. And what he was trying to say was that this was a big, big result. And he was trying to whip up the energy in the ground and whip up the fervour around the result. Because I think he feels it's important to stress where they are. I mean, we started this at the start of this video. Joshua was talking about they're only 1 point off where they were this time last year. They've not played anything like as well as they were playing this time last year, but that's spot on. And I think Stephen Gerrard will probably see that as a sign of strength. I mean, Josh's piece this morning was a great example of why this would be. That Rangers, for all their faults this season, are still performing at a really, really high level when it just comes to points accumulation. So I think Stephen Gerrard will see the positives in it and see that they've come through a really difficult period with COVID, with injury, with various different problems that have affected his ability to put out a starting 11, and they're a point off where they were last season. And that was in a season that is never going to be repeated. Never.
Yeah.
So I think that tells you a lot about the standards that Rangers are getting to. I say that, though, and that is not to diminish what people have been saying about Rangers lacking a bit of spark, lacking a bit of magic. The first 30, 45, first half, Rangers weren't great. The first 30 minutes were abysmal. It was really boring. Flat, not very much going on. I think, they started reasonably well to the game. They started on the front foot, but by the time Hibs had scored the goal, it's gone back into the sort of structure of Hibs sitting deep, hitting on the break, and Rangers taking too long, too slow. But it definitely improved in the second half. Gerrard's often criticised for his substitutions. He got his substitutions bang on.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think it's a very positive game and a positive result and a positive feeling around the ground because of all these factors, which it didn't look like that was going to be there, did it? After 70-odd minutes or 60-odd minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the mark of champions. Okay, lads, that'll do us there. Thanks again for everyone getting in touch on our YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to there and never miss a video. And also subscribe now to the Rangers Review. You've got a fantastic offer on. It's just £1 a month for the first 2 months and support top quality journalism covering the team you love. We'll be back tomorrow morning. But until then, enjoy the rest of your Monday.